Ukraine, the second largest nation in Europe, and is known as the heart of Europe. As a former part of the Soviet Union, it is one of the newest countries in the world, with a beautiful language, exquisite culture, and some interesting history. There's a lot of fun facts we are excited to share with you about the young Eastern European country. Hello everyone, welcome to Top 10 History, your hub for historical lists and amazing history facts. Today we're going to go over the top 10 interesting facts about Ukraine. Make sure to watch until number 1 because it's one of the most amazing facts about the young nation that will surely surprise you. Before we begin, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel with notifications on because we release a new historical top 10 list every single day. Also, make sure to smash that like button. Alright, let's just get right into the video. It hosts the deepest metro in the world. Something to know about architecture in the Soviet Union is that when they build anything underground, they dig deep. When Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, many underground railway systems were constructed. Most notable is the Arsenal system, which is part of Kiev's metro system. The station is the deepest train station in the world with a depth of 105.5 meters below the Earth's surface, or 346 feet. The reason for digging this deep is particularly due to Kiev's geography. With the high river base of the Dnieper River, it is also rumored that the Soviets set up these train stations as potential shelters for important political figures in the event of a nuclear attack. The train station is also beautifully decorated with chandeliers, marble, mosaics, and colorful stones decorating the interior. The train station is still open to this day and remains incredibly busy, carrying over 1.3 million passengers each day. They wear their wedding rings on the right hand. In most other places in the world, it is common practice to wear your wedding rings on the ring finger of your left hand. However, not in Ukraine. In Ukraine, they prefer to wear their wedding rings on the right hand instead. Other countries that also wear rings on the right hand include Russia, Spain, Norway, Denmark, and others. This is believed to be largely for religious reasons, as Eastern Orthodox Christianity is the mainstream religion throughout Ukraine. The only time you will see a Ukrainian wearing a wedding ring on the left hand is if their spouse dies. Wearing the ring on the opposite hand signifies that they are a widow. The Ukrainians also have some rather unusual wedding traditions. For example, the morning of the wedding, the groom has to go to his bride's parents' house and pay a ransom in order to marry his bride. Also, there's the traditional kidnapping of the bride. This could happen several times during the reception where the bride's bridesmaids would kidnap the bride and hold her hostage until the groom performed some dares. Often the dares would involve taking shots of vodka. Easter eggs originated in Ukraine. When we think of Easter, aside from what it's actually about involving Jesus Christ dying on the cross and rising from the dead, which is a huge part of the Christian faith, we think of rabbits receiving gifts and coloring eggs. But what if I told you that the popular tradition of the coloring of Easter eggs actually originated in Ukraine? Although it might make sense being that Eastern Orthodox Christianity is a huge part of Ukrainian culture. Well, that's right. The Ukrainian tradition is called Pysanki. The reason that Ukrainians color their Easter eggs is that they believed it could bless their lives. They would become holy talismans and symbols of protection, healing, fertility, and prosperity. Before paint was used, the original Easter eggs were covered with wax and dyes. After the wax was removed, it would leave behind patterns in very vivid colors on the eggs. The tradition of Pysanki spread across the entire globe, leading to families around the world to color eggs as part of their Easter festivities. They made the world's longest musical instrument. Now, Ukraine is a big country, being the second largest country in Europe next to its colossal neighbor Russia. However, the country itself is not the only big entity that Ukraine is known for. It is actually home of the world's longest musical instrument known as the trombita. The trombita was an alpenhorn which was used by the mountain dwellers of Eastern Europe as a means of communications, often signaling significant events such as deaths, funerals, and weddings. It wasn't used so much for musical purposes, but it was more used as signaling devices. It consists of a long tube made out of wood and is played by blowing into it. Its more recent ancestors consist of the bugle and the modern-day trumpet, being that it has no valves or buttons. It was limited to the harmonic series, it could only play a couple of notes, but being that it was primarily used as a loud signaling device, that didn't matter so much. It has one of the oldest evidence of humans. When we think of the oldest civilizations in history, we often think of the river valleys such as in ancient Egypt and in ancient Mesopotamia. However, archaeological evidence suggests traces of humans much older than the river valley civilizations, and several of these sites were actually found in Ukraine itself. And it dates back to some of the earliest humans known by historians. That's right, Ukraine is home to several Neanderthal settlements. Several fossils of woolly mammoths and settlements that used mammoth bones as tools and for structures were all dug up in the soils of Ukraine. It is even suspected that Ukraine may have been the location where the horse was tamed and domesticated, which the horse became one of the most valuable commodities of humans for centuries. These sites, known as the Moldova sites, are dated back to around 43,000 to 45,000 BC, one of the earliest evidence of humans that we know about. Number 5. It is home to the world's first constitution. As common as democracies are today, it might be surprising how young modern democracies are, being that the world's first ever constitution was drafted in 1710. And as you guessed by the title, Ukraine claims the title of the world's first constitution, which was penned by Hetman Pilip Orlik. It has established the idea of having separate powers in government and balance of power, with having the government split into legislative, executive, and judicial branches, an idea that is very popular in today's democracies. It outlined not only the responsibilities of the government, but also stressed the basic rights of all Ukrainian citizens. Although not all of it was with 100% good intent, as Articles 4 to 5 of the Constitution talk about expelling Russians from Zaporozhian territories, and Articles 1 to 3 talk about Eastern Orthodox being the official faith of Ukraine, while other faiths such as Judaism are to be forbidden. However, there is debate over the actual power this constitution had, as at the time Ukraine was considered a puppet state of Russia. Russian Tsar Peter I's imperial rule had true power over Ukraine. It hosted an Allied Powers Summit. The Allied Powers, whose main forces consisted of the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union, was an alliance of nations that led to the defeat of Adolf Hitler during the Second World War. A famous summit of its leaders, known as the Yalta Conference, took place in Ukraine's Lvovia Palace in 1945. Attending the summit was Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. At this summer, relations between the Allies would be discussed following the end of the Second World War in Europe. However, what these leaders didn't know is that these relations were not going to last long at all, as the Soviet Union was quickly distrusted by the Western Allies due to their aggressive actions, such as the failure to liberate Europe's eastern nations, its aggressive spread of communism in Eastern Europe, as well as the development of their very own atomic bomb. This distrust would lead to several years of conflict known in history as the Cold War. Although it is cool that these leaders met in Ukraine in order to attempt positive relations between their nations, it was overall quite ineffective knowing the outcome. It hosts the world's worst nuclear disaster. Well, it's probably no surprise to anyone that this made it on this list. One of possibly the world's worst nuclear disasters, at least the world's worst unintended nuclear disaster, would go down in history as the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. On April 26 of 1986, reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant melted down, causing massive radioactive contamination throughout Eastern Europe. It is estimated 1 billion Soviet rubles worth of damage, which would be equivalent to a whopping 68 billion of today's US dollars, adjusting for inflation. Today, Chernobyl is a place that you can actually visit for short time periods, as it became open to tourists. However, living in this area is strongly discouraged as the area is still radioactive. According to scientists, the area is so radioactive that Chernobyl and the area surrounding it won't be habitable for another 20,000 years. There's so much more we could say about the Chernobyl disaster, and it would have to have its own video if we were to really do it justice. It has a ton of cafes. Cafes are a big part of European culture. However, one Ukrainian city can boast the title of having the most cafes per capita in the world. The city of Lviv itself has over 1,500 cafes alone. That's one coffee shop for every 480 people. To put that in perspective, take one of the most popular cafe chains in the US, Starbucks. Starbucks has 14,861 locations nationwide as of July 2021. Take the US population of 328 million and divide it by the number of Starbucks locations, and you get one Starbucks for every 22,000 Americans. But let me remind you, the city of Lviv, Ukraine, has one cafe for every 480 people. That's about 46 times the density of coffee shops per capita than there are Starbucks in the US. Ukrainians must really love their coffee. There's really no denying that the city of Lviv, Ukraine, has the most caffeinated population in the world. They have one of the busiest McDonald's. Now, it might shock you that this European gem of a country, rich with culture that dates all the way back to the Stone Age, would hold a record involving the American fast food chain McDonald's. Yes, that's right. It's said that the city of Kiev has one of the world's most busiest McDonald's. In fact, it is the third most visited McDonald's in the world, located at the Vokzalny Square in Kiev. It is located right next to a very busy train station and is a go-to location for Ukrainians to get a quick bite to eat before or after traveling on the railway. One of the only McDonald's in the world that might be busier than Kiev's location is the location in Pushkin Square in Moscow. Sorry Ukraine, looks like another one of your greatest achievements might again be dwarfed by Mother Russia. Did these facts shock you? Make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more amazing historical facts and much more. If you like this video, check out this next video on the top 10 facts about Andrew Jackson. Alright, have a great rest of your day and I'll see you in the next video.